Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Sarasvati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Mukam karoti vachalam Pangum langhayate girim Yatkripatamaham bande Paramananda madhavam. Paramananda madhavam. We'll read from verse 12. Ishtan bhogan hipo devaha dasyante yajna bhavitaha tairdattana pradayebhyaha yo bhunte stena evacha evasaha yajna shishtashinas santaha muchyante sarva kilbishaihi Bhunjate te tvagham papaha ye pachantyatmakaranat annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhavaha karma yajñād bhavati parjanyaha yajñah karma samudbhavaha Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagne pratishtitam. Okay, so where are we in the Bhagavad Gita? So in chapter 3. So let us just pause for a moment and look at the thought flow of the entire chapter so far. The first two verses were really Arjuna's questions to Lord Krishna, saying that you praised Jnana Yoga so much, but then you're telling me to engage in Karma Yoga. In chapter 2, you talked about Sthita Prajna, the person of steady wisdom, and how they are liberated while living. And you said 18 verses about the Sthita Prajna, but you're telling me take up Karma Yoga, take up the path of action. And so Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, it's a twofold path. So action is not the state of actionlessness, or what we call naishkarmya. It's not attained by not doing action. Naishkarmya means really knowledge. It means Brahma Vidya. It means Brahma Jnana. It means being free from ignorance. Because only those who are ignorant will feel that they are the doer and hence feel that they would want to act. They would want to perform action. So Lord Krishna tells Arjuna it's a twofold path. Karma yoga for the karma yogis, jnana yoga for the jnana yogis. It's a twofold path, and generally everyone has to first go through karma yoga and then slowly make themselves ready for jnana yoga. Generally, that's what happens. And we saw this verse in detail about who is eligible for karma yoga, who is eligible for jnana yoga. So then verses 4 now to 16, or we'll see 16 in a bit. Lord Krishna is explaining the path of karma yoga. And what was his thought flow so far? So he says here, this is the path of karma yoga. The path of karma yoga is this. The one who does karma yoga prepares themselves for liberation. So this we can easily see in verse 9. In verse 9, it says that all actions performed for the sake of sacrifice or for the sake of God, they free us. But all actions that are not for the sake of sacrifice or for the sake of God, they bind us. So therefore, this karma yoga is a pathway to liberation in that it leads us to jnana yoga. So the first point is karma yoga is a pathway to liberation. This we can see in verse 9. And then in verse 10, we see that this karma yoga is really our dharma because we are created with sacrifice. So the second point is the Creator created us with sacrifice, with these 5 yajnas. Saha yajna, the Deva yajna, the sacrifice to the gods, then the Rishi yajna, sacrifice to the rishis, Pitra yajna to the ancestors, Nr yajna to all of the humans, and Bhuta yajna to all of the creatures, the beings. So we were created with these 5 sacrifices, and therefore our life becomes a life of gratitude. So sacrifice and gratitude, we see this in verse 10. Perform your own karma in the spirit of karma yoga, in the spirit of sacrifice and gratitude. And then in verse 11, why else should we perform karma yoga? Why else should we do it in this spirit of sacrifice? Because in verse 11, it says that everyone prospers. When we all work together in the spirit of sacrifice, everyone prospers. Parasparam bhavayantaha shreyaha param avapsyatha. Then in verses 12 and 13, what he says is, listen, the one who doesn't engage in this, they're like thieves and they eat sin. So perform karma yoga for purity, because if we don't, we are like thieves and we eat sin. And so we saw this last week that people, when somebody is deeply into yajna, everybody benefits. And those that don't do anything or don't contribute, but they partake in it, yaha bhungte stena eva saha, they're like a thief. They're like a thief because without doing anything, they're just taking. And we don't realize in life, but we take a lot. We take so much. But have we ever thought of how much we gave? In verse 13, also it says, the one who just works for themselves, that person eats sin. So the one who is yajna shishtashinaha, the one who performs yajna, and then whatever they get back, the results, they again put it back into the cycle, they will be purified. But the ones who perform and then they don't give anything back, they are called thieves, and they also eat sin. So their food is sin. So let's say if I was acting today and none of my acts were selfless, they were all selfish acts, then what happens is one literally eats sin. Why does one eat sin? Because the ego becomes so big, it bursts. Selfishness is something that really makes the ego expand. And when the ego expands like that, it is nothing really but sin, because it blocks us from the realization of the self. It blocks us from that jnana yoga. And sometimes we think, oh, but why should I give? Why should I contribute? I have so many things to take care of, and it's not my duty. It's not, I don't have anything to do with it. Sometimes people feel like that, but people feel like that because of a lack of awareness of how much we've received. As I said, we've taken so much from the world, but we haven't given enough. So somebody feels like, well, it's because of my hard work and efforts that I make 6 figures every year. And it's my hard work, it's my effort. So why should I think about other people? Why should I give back? What's the point? Now, did we ever think about the person who inspired us to work? The person who gave us that enthusiasm, who encouraged us, the person who gave us the knowledge, the person who took care of everything when we had to go to work. Is that something that we can pay back? No. So really, we did not make that money on our own. There were so many factors in it. So we cannot feel that, oh, this is mine, so I should only keep it for me. That is called stena. That is called eating sin. So this is what happens when people have that mentality. So he says here, be a yajna shishtaha. With whatever we get, give, and keep whatever you require, but keep going back. Keep giving back and keep letting this cycle move. Why? So in verses 14 and 15, we were given the beautiful meaning that all of us are part of a cosmic cycle. So it's a cosmic creation. It's a cosmic wheel. So do karma yoga. Why? Liberation, sacrifice, gratitude, prosperity, purity, and cosmic connection. So there's so many reasons to perform action in the spirit of karma yoga. All of these things come into play. Now, today I said I'll show you an illustration of this cosmic wheel and how beautiful it really is. So the first thing we show, before I show you the wheel, when Prajapati, the creator, created us, Sahayagnya. So it means right away that we're cosmic citizens. So when it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, Sahayagnya means with yagnya, it means upon birth we got a passport. And what country does our passport belong to? Cosmic citizen. Sahayagnya. And what is our cosmic constitution? Yagnya. Our cosmic constitution is sacrifice. So when we were born, we got a cosmic passport, and our cosmic constitution is sacrifice. And if we follow that sacrifice, it will lead us to prosperity. And this you can also see in the flag of Bharat. The flag of Bharat, in the top portion, is orange. Orange is the color of sacrifice. And if we sacrifice and we all move in that chakra, the second, the middle is the chakra, then it leads to the green, which stands for prosperity. So that is also very much in line with our scriptures of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is now, I'll show you this wheel so that we can all reflect upon it. So verses 14 and 15, this is what it says. It says it in Sanskrit, but I put it here in English also so that it's easier. So where does it start from? Where does everything start from? Everything starts from here. Everything starts from God. So everything starts from God. Paramatma, the creator. Everything starts from here. And God gives us knowledge. Yasya nishvasitam veda. So it is said that the breath of God is knowledge. in the sense that it's effortless. It's just effortlessly coming from God. So from God comes knowledge. And this knowledge, the Veda, which the rishis tuned into and contemplated upon, rishis or rishikas, what happened was they got the knowledge of how to live life. How should we live life? Now we are here, how do we live life? So they got the knowledge of karma or action, that everybody should perform action according to their swadharma, according to their temperament of mind, according to their stage in life, according to their inclination. Everybody should perform action. Then what action? How should they perform action? In the spirit of sacrifice. So not a selfish action, but a selfless one. Yajna here means spirit of sacrifice. And when we perform action in the spirit of sacrifice, what happens? We gain what is called prosperity. That rain is a symbol of prosperity. Because when everybody works together, then all kinds of prosperity showered upon us. It just showers, it trickles. And sometimes it's a big storm. So it depends on our spirit of sacrifice. Little sacrifice, then drizzles will come. But if it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of selflessness, then a whole downpour comes to all of us. That's prosperity. What happens when there's prosperity? Everyone grows. So, the food grows, the crops grow, the animals grow, the water cycle happens, everything grows. And that's why in our culture, rain is so important, because everything grows. There's abundance. And so that food stands for that abundance, that growth, that profit. And of course, when there is food, there is life, because our bodies, the human body, is it's sustained by food, created by food, sustained by food, and goes into food. And so that gives us life. And then that life, what is that life again meant for? What is life meant for? Life is meant to seek God and God alone. So this is the chakra. This is the chakra. So when it says here, in verse number, now I'm referring to verses number 14 and 15. So annad bhavanti bhutani. So in the verses, it comes backward. But I just thought it'd be nice to start from God and go this way. So from food, so here, so the beings come from food. Parjanyat anasambhavaha. Then from rain, food is produced. So from food, beings are produced. From rain, food is produced. And then yajnat bhavati parjanya. From yajna, rain is produced. Then yajna karma samudbhavaha. From karma, yajna is produced. Karma brahmodbhavam vidhi. From the Veda, karma is produced. Brahmakshara samudbhavam, and that comes from God, that God which is imperishable in nature. Tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajne pratishtitam. Therefore, that all-pervading God, that all-pervading truth is ever resting or reposing in yajna. So this is what we call the cosmic chain, the cosmic cycle, from God to knowledge, to action, to the spirit of sacrifice, to rain, to food, to beings, and then hopefully the beings again go back to God. Now, this ties in with the next verse, but we'll read the next verse later because I want to put everything in one big picture. What happens in the next verse? It says, what happens if one does not contribute? If one does not contribute. So here we can see, let us say that we did not have Veda. Let us say that we took for granted knowledge. We just took knowledge for granted. Nobody studied the Shastra. Nobody started sharing the Shastra or propagating the Shastra. Nobody preserved the Shastra, and nobody kept it properly, and nobody passed it down from tradition to tradition. If there was a block here, what would happen? We would not know what to do with ourselves. What is the purpose of life? How to act? Why to act? When to act? And how do we establish a community? How do we make everything work? We wouldn't have such knowledge. We would just be acting without any sort of vision and just running helter-skelter all over the place. And so if we do not have this category of those who preserve, those who study, those who share knowledge, we will be all confused. At the same time now, if we had these people who were preserving knowledge, studying, sharing, but nobody wanted to act, nobody wanted to do anything, then we would never even come to this spirit of sacrifice leading to prosperity. We wouldn't come to that. This is people who are stuck in inertia, don't want to do anything, don't want to act, don't want to go anywhere, just staying there. So definitely there's no spirit of sacrifice and there's no prosperity, because these people are just staying in. So what happens, we saw in the Bhagavad Gita, when people out of laziness just stay, then everybody loses out. The whole population loses out because they disrupt the cosmic chain. Then what happens here if we do not do things in the spirit of sacrifice? So let's say knowledge is there and was given and has passed down. And then let's say everybody's performing action. Okay, fine. But it's selfish action. It's not in the spirit of sacrifice. Then what happens? There's no prosperity. There is no prosperity going to happen. Then no prosperity, no abundance, profit, growth, and therefore no life. The life forms in our planets will start to disappear. They'll start to be extinct and disintegrate. And we're seeing that. So when people perform selfish action, they cut the whole thing here off. It's all cut off. And this is what happens because we lose sight of the fact that we're part of this cosmic chain. So selflessness will bring us to a lot of construction and prosperity, but selfishness leads us to distraction. Selflessness will lead us to prosperity and growth, but selfishness will lead us to decay. And soon we will lose all life form on the planet if we keep going the way we're going. So Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, you are part of this beautiful, harmonious cycle. Don't disrupt it. Don't disrupt it. Don't say that I'm not going to fight this war, because I'm so attached to my teachers and I don't know what to do and they're so dear to me. Don't forget that we are part of a greater cosmic cycle. And if you or I do not do our dharma in the spirit of yajna, everybody is affected. One thing can affect everybody else. And that's the cycle. And Lord Krishna says something so incredibly beautiful in verse number 15. Tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yagne pratishtitam. Lord Krishna says that all-pervading God, it's all-pervading everywhere. But if you want to feel God, if you want to see God, experience God, you feel God in yajna. in the spirit of sacrifice. When people come together for a higher cause, which will benefit everybody, and they do it in the spirit of absolute selflessness for the greater good, and whatever they receive, they give it back to the system, this is called yajna. And when all of this happens, you see not people, but you see God. So if ever some people feel that, I haven't seen God, I want to see God, I'm meditating, but nothing's happening, I'm not seeing light, I'm not seeing or hearing any sound, just open your eyes and look. There are so many places where there is the spirit of yajna. And that is God. I was reflecting on this verse, Tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajna pratishtitam. And I was thinking, every day I see God then. Every day I see God, because every day there is so much yajna happening. Just recently, you all know we had a talk on Wisdom of Women Saints, and we're working on this book of women saints, and just an idea came, so we said, okay, let's all work on it. But where to get writers, where to get people to draw illustrations, where to get people to help edit, we don't know it. We don't know anything. Where to get sponsors? Simply some thought came, oh, we don't know how to do anything. But just by even sharing that thought, so many people came together and they said, we're ready to give for this yajna. And people from everywhere and anywhere, we wouldn't even think or imagine, but they're all coming together. And so that is God. That is really, really God. There's nothing else we can put to explain that. We know what's happening, but we have no idea how it's happening. That is only God. Only God. So if we want to see this reflection or expression of God, God's true expression comes in yajna. Even when I think about Chinmaya Upavan, I think about the Chinmaya Upavan project and how it's so big, it's so huge, but so many people are just coming together, and it's already going to happen. It's already there. It's already there. Sukshma, what we say in subtle form. It just has to become vyakta. It just has to become sthula. It has gross form. That also, we don't know where people come, how they come, but they just come. And that is only God. There's no other way to explain it. Tasmat says, Sarvagatam Brahma Nityam Yajne Pratishtitam. So if we want to see God, open our eyes. I know some of you are thinking also, but there's so much death and distraction. There's so much going on right now. But you should see and be surprised that even in that distraction, even in that death, people are still practicing yajna. People are still there, in the train stations, in Lviv. They're distributing food, they're distributing medicines, they're helping each other, they're carrying people. And when we see that, that's God. That's God. So yes, even in the midst of destruction, even in the midst of death, there is still yajna. So we cannot lose hope, because yajna at the end will always win. It's the cosmic constitution. That is yajna. So now let us read verse number 16. We've seen the essence of 16 already, but let's read the verse so that we understand the words. Evam pravartitam chakram. Padminiji? Oh, Padminiji. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Right, let's try that again. Evam pravartitam chakram.
Evam pravartitam chakram.
nanuvartayati hayaha
nanuvartayati hayaha
aghayurindriya ramaha
aghayurindriya ramaha
mogham parthasya jivati.
mogam partha sajivati
Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriya ramaha mogham partha sajivati. So what it says here, evam. Evam means in this way, as per verses 14 and 15, as per what has been discussed in 14 and 15. Pravartitam chakram. Chakram means this wheel is pravartitam. It is set in motion. It is moving. And yaha, the one who na anuvartayati, the one who does not follow it, iha, here, the one who does not follow this cycle or who disrupts it, what happens? Aghayuhu, that person is living in sin. Agha means sin, ayuhu means life. Aghayuhu, that person is living in sin. And indriya ramaha, just rejoicing in their own sense pleasure. Bogham partha sajivati, saha, they, jivati, they live in bogha, they live in vain. O partha. So now he's bringing his attention to Arjuna. O Arjuna, he who does not follow here the wheel that thus set revolving, that chakra, is of a sinful life, rejoicing in the senses. He lives in vain, O son of Pritha. So this is what happens when somebody just disrupts it. They are aghayu. They're eating in sin. They're living in sin. There is now that Holi is coming up, there is a story of Kamadeva. I'm sure you all know this story. So I will just briefly remind you of it. There was this one demon, Tarakasura, and it was disrupting all of the Devatas. And so they needed someone to defeat this demon. So the Devatas went to Brahmaji and he said, only Bhagavan Shiva's child will be able to defeat this Tarakasura. And so the Devata said, oh my goodness, why? Bhagavan Shiva is ever meditative. He's ever in his samadhi, in his blissful peace. And Parvati Mata has been doing so much tapasya to marry him, but he's just ever engaged in samadhi. And so they said, let us send Kamadeva. And so Kamadeva has been sent to Lord Shiva. And before he goes, he says, I know that I am not going to succeed against Lord Shiva. I know that it's not going to work, but I offer myself unto you. Means Kamadeva sacrificed himself. He sacrificed himself. He said, I offer my life to all of you. I'm not going to succeed. And lo and behold, when Kamadeva went to try to tempt Lord Shiva with all kinds of things, making the animals coo and sound very beautifully and making the wind just fragrant and flowy and making the colors shine, Lord Shiva didn't get tempted. His eyes were closed. But Kamadeva went up, climbed a tree, shot his 5 arrows at Lord Shiva, and then Shiva opened his eye and Kamadeva was burnt to ashes. And this day where Kamadeva was burnt to ashes, and then, of course, Lord Shiva revived him as Ananga, the one without limbs, that day is called Holi. That day is also called Holi. So this is what we get when a person sacrifices their life. Kamadeva, he said, I will do it. Yajna, I will offer my life. And Lord Shiva was pleased with Kamadeva and his wife, Rati. So he said Kamadeva will be known as Ananga, the one without limbs. But in his next birth, he will be born as Lord Krishna's son, Pradyumna. And there, Rati, you can unite with Kamadeva. And so, because of Kamadeva's yajna or sacrifice, what happened? There was prosperity everywhere, there was abundance, and there was the marriage of Shiva and Parvati. And of course, there was life. Kartikeya, Muruga, Skanda was born. And this Kartikeya was the one who defeated Tarakasura because of yajna. So this is what we celebrate in our culture, sacrifice. But when somebody doesn't do that, it says they live in sin because they live in selfishness. The selfishness, as I told you, is that sin. It is sin. That itself is sin. Selfishness is sin. And because they rejoice in their senses, they become Indriya Ramaha. So all they care about is what pleases them, what's going to give them pleasure, looking at what, hearing what, feeling what, tasting what will give them pleasure. No sense of anything else or anybody else in this world. Indriya Ramaha. Ramaha comes from the root ram, to revel. And they are just reveling in the sense objects. Indriya Ramaha. Mogham. They live life in vain. Mogha means vain. Why? Because that purpose for which we are born, that realization of the self, they completely cut themselves from that purpose. So that karma yoga slowly transforming into jnana yoga, so that one realizes the self, they cut themselves off that track and they live life in vain. And they come back again and again and again without realizing why they were ever here in the first place. This is what happens to someone who takes for themselves. So someone who is, so what have we seen? The one who doesn't contribute is a stena, is a thief. The one who performs but doesn't give back, they eat sin. They papa, they eat sin. And then also they live in vain, mogha. So these things happen to the one who's just unaware of their connection with the cosmos. Whenever our vision moves from the cosmos to a single creature, that's called selfishness. That breeds selfishness. So whenever that vision, it's not about everybody and what's good for all, and it just moves to the single creature, that is selfishness. But when the vision moves from this creature to the cosmos, that is called selflessness. That's called selflessness. And that person will definitely be purified. Now, a question comes. And this question came to some of you also last week, that does everybody have to participate in this chakra, this cosmic cycle? So I'll just show you this cosmic cycle one more time so you can just get a sense of this cosmic chain. So does everybody have to participate in this cosmic chain, from God to knowledge, to action, to sacrifice, prosperity, abundance, to life? Does everybody have to do it? And so the answer is no. Not everybody has to do it. Some people are exempt. Who's exempt? Now let us see here. I'll just read a few lines from the commentary of Adi Shankaracharya ji. It's very, very beautiful. So he says, he quotes Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, And he says here that these people are exempt. The ones who etam ve tam atmanam viditva. So those people, atmanam, the self, viditva, having known the self, nivrittam mithya jnanaha, and they are free from mithya ajnana. They are free from this false notion that I am the body, mind, intellect, ego. They are free from this notion. Santaha, Brahmana, those people who know that they are Brahman, Mithya Jnanavaddihi Avashyam Kartavyebhyaha Putreshanadibhyaha Vyuthaya. Those who have Yuthaya, those who have given up, renounced. What have they given up? These desires for pleasure, for name, for fame, for progeny. This is what we call the three Ashanas. Three Ashanas. Vitteshana, desire for wealth. Then Putreshana, desire for social life, for family, for all of that. Then the next one is Lokeshana, desire for name and fame. These ones who have given up the desire for all of that, the ones that people feel that they have to do. So people feel in this world that they have to do certain things, they have to go through certain experiences, they have to perform in a certain way. Those who have given that up, bhikshacharyam sharira sthiti matra prayuktam charanti, and they just lead a very, very simple life with their sole aim, not even really aim, but their sole thing that they're doing in life is just resting on the self. Bhiksham, when it says Bhiksham Charanti, doesn't mean we all have to go for Bhiksha. It just means very simple life. That they're only doing things to maintain their body, but really their heart and soul and mind is reveling in the self. It says here, Na tesham atma jnana nishta vyatirekenanyat karyam asti. It means other than abiding in the self, they have no other duty. There's nothing else for them to do. So those people who have known the self, who realize the self, who know their essence, those people who have renounced desires for the world, they no longer have a desire for the world of pleasure. They've renounced that. They live their lives very simply with their heart, soul, and mind focused on the self. Their only thing, if there be a thing, is just abidance in the self. To them, there is no other duty. There is no other work. There is nothing to be done because they have achieved or they have realized the very purpose for which we were born. And that is the introduction to the next verse. So now, if you see, Adi Shankaracharya ji's thought flow is very clear. Sri Krishna's thought flow is so clear that in verse 3, it says, Karma yogena yoginam. Verse 3, Lord Krishna says there's a twofold path. Karma yoga, jnana yoga. Karma yoga path he has shown from verses 4 to 16. So 4 to 16 is all about karma yoga. Now, those who are exempt from this cycle, this chakra, they are now on the path of jnana yoga. And that is shown now in verses 17 and 18. So this is how the thought flow happens in the Bhagavad Gita. So let's read verse 17. It's also a very, very beautiful verse. This chapter 3 is the most practical thing that we can share with anybody from any walk of life, because it's really about living in harmony and realizing who we are. Yastvatmaratirev syat.
यस्त्वात्मरतिरेव स्यात्
Atmatriptascha manavaha.
आत्मतृप्तश्च मानवः
Atmanyeva cha santushtaha.
आत्मन्येव च सन्तुष्टः
Tasya karyam na vidyate.
तस्य कार्यं न विद्यते
Yastvatmaratirev syat. Atmatriptascha manavaha. Atmanyeva cha santushtaha. Tasya karyam na vidyate. So what does he say here? Tu. The word tu means now we're on a different person. Yaha tu. That yes tu is yaha tu. The person who atmaratihi. That tu means but. But yaha, that person, atmaratihi, the one who rejoices in the self, eva, alone, maybe atmatriptaha, the one who is satisfied with the self, cha, manavaha, that being, atmani eva cha santushtaha, the one who is contented only in the self, tasya karyam na vidyate. For that person, na vidyate. There is no karya, there's no work to be done, there's no duty. Who's this person? The person who rejoices only in the self, who's satisfied within the self, who's content in the self alone. For that person, there is nothing more to be done. So these people are exempt from this cosmic cycle. So what do these words mean? Atmaratihi. Rati means rejoice, joy, revel. The one who revels in Atma is Atmaratihi, the one who takes delight in Atma. So this exactly contradicts, if you see in verse 16, it is called here Indriya Ramaha. So in verse 16, there was this Indriya Ramaha, the one who's reveling in the Indriyas, in the sense objects. They're reveling in that. This one is the opposite. This one is Atmaratihi, or you can even say Atmarama. This person is reveling in the self. So there are two kinds of people in life, right? Actually, we see, and those who are studying Ken Upanishad also know this, that there are just two things in the world, the seen and the seer, right? This whole world, we divide into the seen and the seer. The seer is Atma, the seen is everything else. So the seer is Atma, seen is everything else. So then there are two kinds of people. The one who's after the seen and the one who's after the seer. So that Indriya Rama, their delight is the sense objects. They're constantly delighted about what is there to see, what is there to hear and taste and touch, and where is there to go and what is there to do. They're all concerned about all the outward things, what's to see, what's to experience, what's to do, where to go. That's called Indriya Rama. But this Atmaratihi is concerned about who is the seer, who is the hearer, who is the smeller, who is the taster. What is that by which I can see? What is that by which I can taste and touch and feel? Shrotrasya shrotram manaso manoyata. It's the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind. Vacho havacham saupranasya pranaha. The speech of the speech, the life of the life. Chakshushashchakshurati muchadhiraha. The eye of the eye. That person who's concerned about the inside, that ultimate seer, that person is called Atmarati. So as seekers, we must ask ourselves, what is our rati? What do we revel in? Is it ice cream or the seer? Is the eye of the eye? What do we revel in, these objects, or do we revel in the self? Where, in what direction does our mind go? Now, if the mind is still going outside, then karma yogena yogida. If the mind is going inward, then jnana yogena sankhya. That is what it is. Now, there's one beautiful verse. I will just read it to you and explain to you. I thought of this verse when I saw this word, Atmaratihi. Adi Shankaracharya ji has this composition called Kaupina Panchakam. 5 verses if somebody is wearing a kaupina or loin cloth. And the first verse, as he says, Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadanamantaha Bhikshana Matrena Chatushtimantaha Ashokavantaha Karunekavantaha Kaupinavantaha Khalu Bhagyavantaha. He says this is what to do in life. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramantaha. Revel in the Vakyas and the statements of Vedanta in our scriptures, in our Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, in our Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puranas, all of our lives of saints. Revel in that. Vedanta Vakyeshu Sadaramantaha. That will give one a lot of joy. In Bhikshana Matrena Chatushtimantaha. And the one who's just very content by what they get. Whatever they receive, they are truly content. Ashokavantaha, Karunekavantaha means they're free from sorrow. Ashoka, free from sorrow. And Karunekavantaha, full of compassion. Blessed indeed. Blessed indeed. Bhagyavantaha means blessed indeed is the Kaupinavantaha, the loincloth ascetic. And this doesn't mean that we all have to be that ascetic, but it just says the one who's lived simply. I think Dina ji messaged me the other day. She said, live simply so that others can simply live. It's a very, very nice thought. So this is the idea, that their mind is reveling, their rati is somewhere else. It's not where probably our rati is. Atmarati. Next, here we see Atmatriptaha. Atmatriptaha means they are satisfied only in the self. They are not interested in anything. They are just satisfied in the self, nothing else. So, you know, sometimes that when people go out to eat, right? So when people go out to eat, let's say some Italian, let's say the kids or teens, they wanted to have Italian food. And normally they like all of this. And they ordered pizza, some kind of pizza. Now, somebody's from North India, what will they say? Where's the chili sauce? Where's the pepper flakes? This is not this pizza is nothing. I need chili flakes, you know, the pepper, all of that. I don't understand how the kids eat something like that. Someone from the south, after eating pizza, what will they say? Where's my curd rice? I still want my curd rice. This pizza is that, I don't know what this pizza is, but I want my curd rice. So it means that in this world, when we get something, we're always seeking something else. Somebody gives us something, we're like, oh, where is this? Where is that? We're always seeking something else. We are not satisfied. But Atma Triptaha means, oh, like we saw in Sthita Prajna Lakshana, Apuryamanam Achala Pratishtam. They're like that ocean. That ocean was already full. So even if more rivers flow into it, it doesn't bother the ocean. If rivers also don't come, it doesn't bother the ocean. To the ocean, there is no increase or decrease in their satisfaction. Nothing can increase or decrease it to the person who is Atma Tripta, who's ever satisfied. So, like a person who has $5 million, you give this person $5, big deal. You take away $5, big deal. Unless that person's kanjusa, then they'll keep thinking about the $5. Huh? So, his Atma Triptaha is really the one who's ever satisfied. There's nothing else required to increase the happiness that they're feeling. And there's nothing else that can also decrease the happiness that they're feeling. So, Atmaratihi, Atmatriptaha. Then, Atmani eva santushtaha. Santushtaha means they are content in the self. They're content in the self means it's a steady contentment. It never gets stale. They're just being in the self, immersed in the self. They are content. It does not get stale. They could keep doing that all the time. For us, maybe, we can think about Atma or reflect on the Vedanta or some texts every now and then. But after that, we need something else. We need to go, we need a break also from it. But for them, Atmani eva santushta. Nothing else required. It doesn't get stale for them. They can be immersed in it lifelong. Lifelong, they can just be immersed in the self. For this person, tasya karyam na vidyate. There is no other work to be done. Why? Because they're ever reveling in the self, ever satisfied in the self, ever content in the self. There's nothing other to be done. They're just in the self. And also there is no other. There's nothing else. There's only the self. That there's just no ego notion. There's no sense of doership or enjoyership. So if there's no doer, what action could be there? All this action only comes in place when we feel we are the doer. When we feel we are the doer, then we feel we have a desire, and we feel we have the desire, then we have to act, and then we act, we get the results, and then we are the enjoyer. And then again, we go back, we enjoy, and then we want to do again. And then we go through the cycle. Do, desire, and then act, get the results, enjoy, again, go through the cycle. But for this person, there is no doer. There's no doership. So what work will need to be done? More of this we will see next time. Now I will just summarize in a minute. To give you a minute, I'll summarize. So what we did today is we saw the beautiful cosmic wheel. Now, if you have family, friends, what can you do this weekend? You can show them this cosmic wheel of creation. How beautiful it is, and how everything functions when we realize we are cosmic citizens, and that our cosmic constitution is yajna. And evam pravartitam chakram. Now that this is moving, the one who doesn't follow it, the one who breaks it, then the one who breaks it, what happens is it breaks everything. It breaks the prosperity, it breaks the abundance, it breaks the life, and it affects so many, many people. And that person, they live in vain. They are aghayuhu. They're living a life of sin. Indriya ramaha. They revel in the sense objects, and they live in vain, because then they do not purify themselves to come to jnana yoga. But is there anyone exempt? Yes, there is. The one who is established in the self, the one who's reveling in the self, satisfied in the self, content in the self. They are exempt from this cycle of this wheel, this cycle, this cosmic cycle. They are exempt from it. Okay, let us say the closing prayer, and then I'll make a few announcements for everybody. And if you have questions, of course, we will address those. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, wonderful. So before